Okay, we're back.
He doesn't sound very happy. Welcome! Welcome to our individual review of Son of Akanga by W.B.Njeru. Njeru. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong.
You know what? Yeah, she's sorry about that, but I have words with you, sir. I have serious words with you.
Dealing with the book.
Oh, yeah. That wasn't obvious enough, but yes, I have words with you. Personally impacted.
But welcome. We're going to be talking about the book, our feelings on it. We have a lot of thoughts and feelings. Yeah, so we'll just get into it.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Okay.
So let's get into it, Demi.
I
got notes. Flowcharts.
Flowcharts. Okay, so we'll tell you a bit about the book first. So, can you tell about the book?
Oh, God.
It's a fantasy. It's an epic fantasy, I would say, kind of like high fantasy. I feel like that's what it's going for. We don't have a physical copy of the book. It is a PDF that we were given by the author. And we are very, very thankful for that. It's our first book that we've been giving, and it's really, really great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you as well when we asked you if you would do, like, it was okay for us to do, like, honest reviews. You said yes. And so, thank you.
Thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Not a lot of authors would say yes. So thank you. And it was a trip going through your book.
It was definitely a trip. I think there are a lot of great ideas in this book. I can definitely say that for sure. I think the execution could use a little work.
But the ideas are fantastic, and I find them really interesting. And I really hope some of the thematic points are explored a little bit more.
In the next two books. Yeah, the next two books that are coming out. I'm hoping we can influence it a little bit. I'm really hoping. I have biases that I'm hoping.
I don't hope that, like, whatever you write, that's the author's thing. I just, like, hope that editing is a lot more clean. I think that's my main thing about it is, like, editing. But yeah, it's a fantasy book that follows multi-generational viewpoints. So it's told in different narratives. It's in third person omniscient, I believe. We'll get into why that's a little, like, true and not true
at the same
time. But for the most part, it's third person omniscient. Yeah, so I guess we'll get into the review.
Yes. I just want to give you a little bit of background on this book as well from the author's notes and his LinkedIn profile.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, initially the author started writing this, I believe, in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately there was a robbery that happened, and so
sorry about that. Sucks.
That really sucks. Imagine having your whole book out and then, like, your ideas are taken from you and you had to start all over. That really, really, really sucks. And then he was able to get this out in 2022. So it was a long journey for him, and I think you can tell that he was trying to push this out as well. The other piece was because we are so lucky to have information about the books, so I was just like, let's see what's out there. And I came across his LinkedIn profile, which gave us a little bit of instructions on how we would read this first book. Okay, so are you ready for the instructions?
Yes.
Okay. So the instruction is to skip the prologue. Okay, you skip the prologue.
I remember.
Okay, and then you read chapter 1. After you read chapter 1, you go back and then go through the prologue section by section, and then you come back to chapter 2 through 3, and then you're good till the end.
Yes.
So that was our instructions. I personally could have, I wish that I was given those instructions
earlier
before I started, because I read through that prologue and I thought, I'm not going to remember anything. This is a lot and I'm scared.
Yeah, she told me this, right, when I was starting the book, and I was like, okay, I have never been told how to read a book before. Usually it's from the beginning to the end, and it's like, that's how you read it. Because the prologue is there for a reason, usually. So to be told to skip the prologue first, I was like, no, I'm just gonna read the prologue.
I honestly, that's why I told you to skim it, because I'm like, it's scary. Like, when you go through all of that information being given to you, you're like, my brain hurts a lot.
It was fine. I read through the prologue in like about a couple hours.
A couple of hours?
It's 21 pages. I kept like having to put it down because it is long and info dumpy, and I think that's one of the main critiques we have of the book, is that there's a lot of times where it just feels like an info dump. Like, this author is telling you all this history about the world without showing it to you. It's just like, oh, this and this and this happened, and it's just like,
okay, these people are bad, but why are they bad?
Why and how and like what have they done? Can
that
you show it? Instead of just telling me, it's like, oh yeah, they destroyed this like city or whatever, and it's just like,
okay,
where was that?
When did that happen?
When did that happen?
It felt
that's an example. That never happened in the book, but like, it's stuff like that. That was just like,
yeah, I feel like it's a story that was perhaps maybe told orally.
Yeah. When we were talking, I hadn't read the book yet, but Shay Grey was. Sorry, I call her Shay.
Since
high school,
I couldn't pronounce my name, and so Shay was the only thing that could come to mind. But
Sean Grey, she was reading the book, and I hadn't started yet, and she was explaining to me about what was happening. And I was just like, this sounds like it was meant to be told by mouth.
Yeah.
Word of mouth.
And I really rely on her expertise, because fantasy is her genre. It's not mine. So I also had to be like, I really want you to start reading this, because I don't know if I'm understanding if it's happening in this sequence or if I'm just totally misrepresenting the whole thing, you know?
She, for the most part, like, she understood it.
Yeah.
Well, like, granted, it was hard to particularly understand some parts, but like, it was, yeah.
Okay.
We have the same opinions on a lot of the things.
Good stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, I just feel like it would have been better told orally, I feel like, because a lot of it is telling, and I feel like that's more compelling if someone's telling you a story. Right? Someone is literally in front of you telling you a story. That's
like
when it's compelling.
the beginning of time.
Yeah.
This happened.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's not so much, it doesn't translate so much onto page. On page, you literally have to be like showing what is happening to grab the reader, to really get them to care about your characters. Because if you're just telling, like, this happened to this character, and it's just like,
you're not really invested.
You're not invested. You don't feel like you are right next to that character.
Yeah, I did not connect to most of the characters in the book. I only connected to one and a half. One and a half. The one I was really connected to is Where We Have Words, Sir. Okay? But with that said, yes, like, there was no connection there.
Yeah, like, Shay Grey felt very detached.
Yeah.
For, like, most of it. And to be honest with you, I tend to love characters. I freaking... If you saw our video earlier about our wrap-up, I was attached to an alien. Okay? I get really attached to characters very quickly. But even when I was reading this book, I wasn't attached to anyone. I went through this book barely caring about anybody particularly. It was more like, oh, I felt bad that this happened to this character. That's sad. This character, this happened to them. Oh, that's sad.
Honestly, I cared about one character, and that one character was the reason I was holding on to the rest of the book.
I didn't really care about the characters, to be honest, about like any of them, but I was really interested in the world that was being built. It was a little foggy. It was a little foggy, but it was interesting, and I wish it was told in a more clear way what was happening.
So I think here's the issue, because you were talking earlier about giving details about the character, and when you were saying that, I was a little bit scared, because there was a lot of details.
There is a lot of details.
There's a lot of details. It's not for the lack of details, and yet it was under detailed at the same time. So when you say this, I feel like you need to give a little bit more direction, because I don't want there to be more details in the next book.
That's true.
And still nothing happens.
Yeah, it's like, here's the thing. It felt overwritten overall in both character and plot. Everything, just the wording felt overwritten. There's too many words and too many redundant sentences that I feel could have been cut out. Too many redundant situations that could have been cut out, because you didn't have to flash back to that or go back to that or reiterate that when it's already been said. So there's a lot of that happens in the book, so it feels overwritten and dense. But at the same time, the parts where the plot like moves along, that's barely written and that's barely detailed, and that's where it becomes kind of like, oh, like this book is dense and there's a lot of writing, but there's also almost nothing in regards to plot or like character development that happens, because it's sandwiched in this giant ball of everything else.
Yes. Which we will now move on to the character that we cared about most. This will contain spoilers, so just be wary of that. So the one character that I was in love with most, and I feel like I was holding on to her for dear life because she was the one that was getting me through the book, and that's why I love her so much, was Shiba. Okay? Shiba has a very tragic life. You know, she witnessed a lot of heartache. She goes into hiding. She has a child. She has to then give up that child and loses her husband. And then she's the most powerful being. And then she dies.
Spoiler alert.
Why did she die?
That's her words.
Why did you kill her off? Why? And because it's fantasy, can you bring her back to life in the next book?
I didn't particularly mind that. Like,
Okay, no.
Different opinions in this section. I didn't really particularly mind that. I thought that was an interesting point. I don't think it was done incredibly well. I think it would have been good to build up her humanity and then kill her off, even though she does have a lot already from like the little bit that we get about her. I feel like we could have focused a lot on her journey and her self-discovery and the reason she chose to be influenced by Keck, and we don't really get that. So when she dies and like that big battle happens, I felt nothing.
I also feel like I wonder if I'm on the wrong side of history, because I'm so supportive of her and her journey, and the powers she encompasses and like just everything about her, that I'm like, am I on the right side of history? Because like the way the synopsis was told, it's just overarching battle between Kai and Kek, and Kek, you know, being the epitome of good, and Kek being kind of this evil being. I'm just like, I don't know if I'm on the right side of history, if I should even care that much about her.
I like, when I was reading it, I had like a completely like different thought process when it came to Kai and Kek, but that's because I also didn't read the synopsis of it. I just went into, I very rarely read synopsis for books. I read maybe the first line of a synopsis and I'm like, okay, sounds interesting, you're going in my TBR. Because I like to be like surprised and taken on a journey, right? Like I don't want to have any preconceived notions about what a book is going to be like.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times I don't read a synopsis. So when I was reading the book, I don't know if this is correct. The author would have to tell us. But I felt like it was, Kai and Kek were more just gods. They were just gods that are neither really good or really bad. They're just gods that for some reason control what's going on, and they are fighting. And sadly, humans get caught in the crossfire of that, right? So
they're collateral damage.
They are collateral damage. And so when I was reading this book, it never felt like Kai or Kek were like ever present or
they were just gods that create and smite and
that they just like having fun with these little humans that they have been created, right? Like I feel that that's the vibe I got from Kai and Kek. And so when I was going through the story, it felt more like a story about how we shouldn't let this belief in this God and devil, I guess, dictate how we live our lives completely. We live as good as we can, as humanly as possible, being as kind as we can be, and thinking about others as much as we can in our own personal lives, and not worry too much about the religious aspect of it, right? Like that's what I got. It's like, even though they're there, even though they may be real, even though there is belief in that you are your own person, you are your own human being that can choose whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's what I got.
You know what? And I think that is a great story, and I would just hope that in the next 2 books, at least through Shisheka, Shiva's daughter, that we can kind of get that story and have it be built out. That's what I can hope for.
That's what I can hope for as well. Because I actually, when I was noting, I noted things down on my phone. One of my last points as we were winding down in the story was that if this is truly what the story is about, if this is the encompassing message that is trying to send, is like, you just try your best to be human. My note was that a lot of the characters don't feel human.
They don't.
For a message like that, they don't feel human. And I think that's such a sad and missed opportunity because I would read that book. I would read that book again and again because I love that idea and I love that thought
process.
And
yeah.
The fact that it wasn't executed well made me sad.
It did. I think that's the thing. A lot of the ideas in the book is great. I'm not particularly a fan of Kai or Kek. Like, I could care less about them. And, you know, Shiba, I think, is the one that felt most relatable with her kind of battle between, like, this internal battle she had within herself. About
which we don't get to see
too much of. This is us projecting onto Shiba.
Like, that's the thing about the overwritten and underwritten at the same time. It's like there's so many details around her, but like we don't ever like where is her human like oh my god, am I doing the right thing? what's happening.
We've just been told of what's happening to her, with her, and so from that we are trying to get water out of a stone. So that is just, I think, us as readers trying to project what we think
it's us really reading in between the lines.
The lines.
Like really reading in between the lines.
And the lines are very like condensed too, because that writing does not, there are no spaces in between those lines. So yeah.
And but like,
also, can you choose a different font?
It was, honestly, I think it was just really hard to read the PDF because we weren't able to change
the font
of the book, and it was really hard, and I'm kind of blind. So we both had to read the book like this. She has an e-reader, but she also had to read the book like this.
So I like the orientation just so I can read it in chunks, so I can split up.
Yeah. So the reading experience was a little like off. I also had a huge problem with not just like, we went over like everything getting edited, so that is in regards to grammar, punctuation, spelling errors and stuff like that. But another thing I had a problem with is the way it's separated, the way the paragraphs work.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times the paragraphs will break off into another paragraph without having been tabbed
or indented,
and I'm just like, oh, what's happening? Or it will have a tab and it's indented and it becomes inconsistent, and I'm just like,
Another point was like there are parts of it that are bolded and italicized, wherein like I think it's just like it's important information, like you have to remember this. So I'm like, so did we not have to read anything else before that or after that? Like,
I feel like
if it's important,
you should deliver it well. Like if you are a writer and you are trying to get a point across that's important, you have to workshop that line and the lines around it to deliver that point, right? Clearly. You can't just kind of say whatever and then italicize the points that are important and hope that the reader gets it. You as a writer would have to deliver that message to the reader in a way that's clear and that they can understand. And sometimes more words and more explanation is not always
the way to
go. Sometimes simplicity is key, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes when you deliver a message, it can be self-contained. It doesn't have to have a whole bunch of flowery things around it. You can just deliver that message and that's okay.
Yeah.
Another problem that is stylistic that I was just like, that took me out of the reading experience was dialogue. A lot of the dialogue was so inconsistent, and not just the like people's voices, like the way they sound as like a person, but also the way it's like physically written in the book. Like there are times when there is quotation marks and the dialogue is embedded in a paragraph that is also with another dialogue from a different person, so you're guessing.
You're trying to figure out who said what.
Who is talking?
who said what?
And then sometimes the dialogue changes and it's no longer quotation marks in a paragraph or in a separate sentence, but it's literally like a script. Like there is a person's name and then a colon, and that's in bold, and then like it's what they said with no quotation marks around it at all. And I'm just like,
it's a script.
It's all of a sudden a script. And I was just like, it's
a different style of writing,
of narrative style that's all of a sudden in this book, and I'm just like, hold on a second. I actually texted her when I was reading it, and I was just like, I love when the fantasy book I'm reading turns into a script.
Yeah. I love that as a surprise for you.
I love that as a surprise. Like, wow.
I think just to kind of wind down on our thought process as well, this book has made us realize what our job is as readers, because as readers we're very sensitive, right? Because we're constantly looking for cues and clues, and thought processes as well. So then when we see changes like that, we're like, why is that happening? What's going on?
Is there a point?
Is there a point to it? We start over analyzing just to see if it's supposed to mean something, if it doesn't mean something. So when it's done just kind of callously, we can't tell what's happening, or like
if it was purposeful.
If it was purposeful.
If it was an accident, if it was an error on the writer's part.
Right, exactly. And I also had to check myself when I was reading this, because it is a fantasy genre. I know that we get a lot of information, for world building as well. And I started actually doing like a whole flow chart to be like, okay, who's on which side and who is related to whom, right? And what I had to like check myself and do is say, I'm a reader. And as a reader, if it's important, the writer will bring it back up again. So I don't have to go out of my way to do homework.
Yeah.
And analyze.
Yeah. And like fantasy, there's a lot of fantasy books that are epic fantasies that are not like this. Like it's I've read a couple of fantasies, and it can be really simple to deliver a message clearly. And I think that's a really huge problem in this book is clarity. It's very hard to understand everything. I think it would have been good to maybe start off the series differently, in a more simple storyline that wasn't so focused on everybody
all at once.
I
think maybe like focusing on Sheba
would have been particularly good.
Yeah. Focusing on her and her be the main character of this book. We were just talking about it offline before we started filming. Like, that would have been a great book. That would have made me want to look into the other two books. The second book could have been about Shashanka. The third book could have been about, what she decides in the end, right?
Yeah. Like, and I understand, like, Keenan is this chosen one who is the kind of son of Kai, son of Akanga, right? He is technically the main character of this story, literally the son of Akanga. It never felt like that in the book.
Honestly, he was totally irrelevant to me. I couldn't care less.
Yeah, he didn't feel like the main character. I understood he was the chosen one.
What? Yeah.
We got it. We got he was important. He's the chosen one. He's the one who's supposed to slay the bad at the end.
He's likable.
But he does not do anything in this book. He does not do anything in this book. The only thing he does is he flirts with Shira.
Yeah.
And goes to battle. And that is the extent of the things he does in this book.
And then the battle he went to go fight, actually it wasn't even a battle. He was just supposed to, it was supposed to be a political conversation that they had. He was trying to get his sister back. And it was supposed to be kind of like this political alliance kind of situation that turned into a battle.
Yeah, we didn't really get that.
We didn't get a battle. And in the battle, it wasn't even him. It was the person who was sent to get him.
Yeah, that's true.
The wizard guy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Who did most of the work, the legwork on that situation.
I'm saying this as a general, he does do things in the book, but not anything important, And that's for the main character of the book to not be doing anything particularly important except for going on the journey. I don't know. We don't even really get to know his thoughts outside of like Shira and what he thinks about his father and what's going on in that sense. We don't really get to know him like at all,
and his capabilities. Yeah, we don't know. I don't know if
is he a good fighter?
Yeah.
Was he even a warrior?
I know his brother was.
He's a prince.
I know his brother was trained to be a warrior and is a really good fighter, and I'm like, okay, I get that.
Like, I don't know anything about Keenan, really.
I mean, in all fairness, I think Keenan is like the brain behind the operation, wherein like he is open-minded. Yeah. He's aware of the things that his father lacks, and how he can improve, and just kind of how silly everything seems. Yeah. So I think he's a free thinker, and that free thought is what will bring Akanga
like further along. Yeah. I figured that would be the case, but like
I don't know if he's a good fighter.
Not only that, like even the free thinker part, it's like it's barely touched on.
Again, that's us. That is us being very zealous, over generous, reading between the lines, like really, really with a microscope. Just
like is this really what it means? Yeah, like I don't feel like we really got a lot of him being a free thinker. Maybe like.
I'm saying free, just based on his relationship with Shira is what I'm basing this off of, because it's a forbidden kind of love. And he's like, I don't care who she is, where her lineage is from, I am going for it. You know, like
their relationship would be cute if I cared enough about it, but there was not enough about it for me to care about.
I honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of okay with that, because if there was more to that, I feel like it would be jumping into a
romance genre
that I don't want to get into.
It doesn't have to be particularly romancy, right? Like I just feel like there should have been more chemistry. I just feel like
all he did was grab her water jug and bring it back.
Yeah, the banter
was not bantering.
It was
not delivering.
Like in that, like I just wish there was more like better banter. Like it doesn't have to be full romance, but I just like I need to feel some chemistry that just it didn't feel like it was there. Like aside from the fact that people were kept going like Keenan loves her, Keenan loves Shira, he really loves her. I was just like, does he? I like he talks about how he really loves her, but like why? And like, cause she's independent, and is that it?
Love at first sight.
like, oh, okay. There's not a lot.
He's a one woman. He's a one woman man.
He's a one woman man, and that's all I got. And very good for you, Keenan. Very good for you.
Solid dude. You better stay that way, because if in the next book you're not, I'm gonna have words again.
He is the son and the chosen one, so I don't think he's gonna have problems. Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. I was really sad that I didn't like this book as much, and there were as many glaring problems as there was. But I really like the ideas.
I really like the ideas. I really, really did. I think it's just the amount of time it took me to process, and I think I was putting a lot of pressure on myself because, again, fantasy is not my genre, so I really wanted to really understand every bit of this world and the world that the author was writing. Yeah. So I started taking notes, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of crazy. If I'm like getting out my notebook and I'm actually...
Is this school? Wait a second. We started reading not to do this.
And then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna go with the flow. So yeah, that was pretty much my thought process.
Same. I wanted to really like it. I really did. I love fantasy. It's one of the genres I really enjoy. So to not like it because of preventable things, Like the ideas are there, the elements are there. It's the execution that was the main problem, and for that to be the thing that is the barrier between us as readers and the writer, it sucks, because I want to love it. I really want to love it, and I just can't because of how it's told.
Exactly. And there's potential, and I'm hoping that we are able to influence how that is written.
Yeah.
Just because, again, like there's a foundation there.
There's a foundation there.
There's a foundation there. The next book can save this series.
I would say, like, just get an editor, or get someone who is, it doesn't even have to be an editor, but like get a few others to really read and be honest with you about the way things are in the book. And I think that would really help. That would really help. It'll help you organize, it'll help you edit, it'll help the narrative stay in place, because the narrative goes everywhere. It is all over the place. It is third person omniscient, and then it is third person restricted, and then like
it goes in and out, and ebbs and flows. And I get it, right? As a writer, like, that is you just putting it out on the page, and we understand that.
But as a reader, it's hard. It's not clear. It doesn't make the reading experience good, because it becomes confusing for the reader.
Yeah. And we're excited. We're hanging on, and we're hoping that the next 2 books will kind of redeem this first initial book. So, I mean, again, we haven't given up on this book, and I think
On
that
the series,
yeah, we haven't given up on the series.
Yeah.
And the one thing this book has taught me, if we're going to close out with our final thoughts, for me it was, if it wasn't for the fact that it was provided to us by the author directly, it would have been a book that I would have DNF'd. And I'm glad that I didn't, and I got through it, because the ideas were there, and it's taught me to, like, not be so easy to give up on a book. Even if it's painful and if it hurts and it's like you're struggling, just to get through it and to give every book a fair chance from beginning to end.
Yeah.
That's what it's taught me.
I very rarely DNF books, so even if I don't really like the book, I will finish it at some point. Like, I will always read it. There have been a few that I DNF'd, like, because the initial premise I didn't particularly vibe with, so I just put it down and I never picked it up again. But that's usually early on.
But that's the thing. Yeah. This book was pretty early on too.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It was the first 21 pages.
Yeah.
It was the prologue. I was like, wow.
You are correct. Yeah. I think for reviewing purposes, we try not to DNF books, because if it's given to us, we are very thankful. And if it's an indie author, especially indie authors, I know how hard it is to get people to read your book. So for us, it's like, yeah, we'll read your book. We will read your book. Like, we promise to read your book. I just, like, our honest thoughts and feelings on it, it's gonna come out no matter what.
Especially because we're passionate about reading. Again, like, even with this book, we're still looking forward to the series and seeing how that turns out.
I love ideas. I love when writers can tell a story that hits particular themes that are important to them. I think that's really cool and really intelligent. So I'm always down to read indie authors. It's just that, like, as a reader, I'm not an editor, right? I shouldn't have to be
switching gears.
Switching gears and putting on my editor cap as I'm reading the book. Like, I understand a few spelling mistakes or some grammar issues here and there, maybe like a punctuation out of place. Like, I understand that in ARCs, in advanced reading copies, because I used to review books back in the day, and I got ARCs, and I would understand those, and I'd give those a pass. But when it's all the time and it's constant in the book,
it's really hard to get into it.
I don't want to have to do that job. I don't want to be an editor for the book. That should be something that's done before, whether by the writer themselves rereading their book again and really sitting down and looking at everything, or getting a friend or a few friends or even your family or like some random people you find in writers workshops to read it,
or even put it down and like don't look at it for a couple weeks and then come back to it
and then read it again.
Yeah, and see if it makes sense.
Yeah, like as readers and reviewers, that's not our job, right? So as much as I want to read indie authors and stuff like that, it has to be a finished product. It has to be finished, because I don't want to have to do the editor's job, right?
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much where we're gonna leave it. If anyone is curious in terms of like the themes that we've discussed that the book has, I would encourage you to give it a shot and take a look at it as well. Again, the other 2 books in the series are currently being worked on, and hopefully we can get it back on track.
Yeah,
I am
the
super
ideas
excited.
are really good, and it's if you are able to look past a lot of the writing issues, the ideas that are built there are good, and it would be a good read if you like those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's our
take on this.
Our take on it, like in-depth kind of review on Son of Akanga. And thank you again to the author for allowing us to be honest about our opinions. We are really looking forward to your second book. Please try to get an editor to look at the book. Give it a few passes over just to make sure everything is consistent and makes sense.
If you want to bring Shiva back, you know, I could ask, I could try. If it makes sense to bring her back, if it makes sense, you know, to be resurrected, you know, in a fantastical way, I wouldn't be.
She would not mind.
I wouldn't mind. You don't have to do anything you don't want to.
You want to retcon the first book and just get her to be alive? Shangri would be very happy.
You could just, I don't know.
It's whatever you decide. It's your decision. Thank you so much for the watchers as well, for sticking through.
This one was a long one.
This is a long one, and thank you for staying. Welcome to the end. We appreciate you. Please give us a like, subscribe, share if you want, and join us again next time. Thank you. Bye.